And you're very welcome to West Waterford, heading into the town of Tallow for their annual horse fair. And how better to go to a horse fair than by Horse Park. This is a nationwide with a difference. We've been in Tallow down through the years from time to time, and we've decided to revisit now some old friends and see how they've been getting on during the course of the years. And on this fair day in Tallow, the town, of course, is buzzing. And we've hitched a lift into the event from horsey man Donal Keane. Donal, you've been coming to this for many a long day.
Oh, many today, 40 years or more. 40 years.
And were you always into horses, your family?
Always into horses. I've horses until about 14 or 15 years of age. I bought my first horse. And sold my first horse here 40 years ago.
For how much?
For 120 quid.
So you did well.
I did well. I bought it for 50.
And you stayed in the business
I
then?
stayed in the business. I didn't get much richer, but I stayed in it. The love of the horse.
The horse fair here in Tallow is held on the same day of every year, and it has been thus for 100 years or more. We've been trawling through the archives and we found a piece of film of the horse fair taken some 30 years ago.
Tallow in County Waterford has been having a 9-day festival, including a motor show, racing and numerous street events. One of the attractions is the Tallow Horse Fair, but buyers were few and far between. The proceeds of the festival will go to a popular local cause, the Tallow Community Centre. The award for the best horse of the fair was won by a 4-year-old gelding owned by Mrs. Anne Mellerick of Killay, County Cork. It fetched £4,000.
Would many horses be making £4,000 these days?
Today I'd say about 2 or 3 would make that kind of money. In 1979 it would have been really the main fair to sell horses. But at the moment there's lots of fairs and a lot of organised sales for horses. This is just like nature takes its course here today. Like the fair started this morning around 8 o'clock, and the horses came from, quite a lot of horses would come from Clare, and really a mixed grill of horses.
Can't you divide what's between you? One, get the job
well,
done.
here, look, I won't break this man's will. Give me 100 for luck, so.
150, 100.
Yeah.
One. Well done.
And they tell me that there's no actual organising committee, it just happens, a recurring miracle.
None whatsoever. It's like nature in the area. Like the horses just arrived, and some of the traders arrived 3 or 4 days ago. Just the Gardaí put up no parking signs, and it just happened like that.
Right. And does it mean much to the town?
It would. Like there's like a huge crowd come in for the day. Like it's like people from a lot of the surrounding towns would come in just for the day, and it's a very sociable. It's a very sociable evening here. Like at the moment now, what I would call the day crowd are in. But in the evening, then, like people would come to the pubs around 6 o'clock, and you know they would. There'd be a lot of that kind of thing would go on. They'd just come to see some of the horses, and the pubs would do very well in the evening.
I'm told it's a long day for the publicans. They open at 7 in the morning.
Apparently.
We wouldn't know about that.
All right.
And to me, I imagine you'd have to be a fairly brave man now. If you didn't know about your horses, you could be taken for a ride in every sense, could you?
You mean trying to walk through it or trying to buy one?
Buy one.
Would you want to be an experienced dealer now to buy here, I think. There's a lot of an awful lot of different kind of horses you can see in the background here. There's this kind of an animal. Like the main buyer here today would be Francie Derwin and Miley Cash, and there's a few northern buyers here that buy what we call sport horses to go. They would be mainly to go to England. As you see from that now, that would be typical Tallow fair.
You want to be very nimble on your feet to keep away from the kicking end of the horse.
Somebody would just hit a horse with a stick, you know, and that's what happened there now.
But if a horse didn't work out, you'd have no comeback.
No comeback, no. Come back next year and sell it.
Well, the whole length of the main street from one end of town to the other is lined with these stalls where you can buy anything from, oh gosh, from horse tack, I suppose, agricultural equipment, and I'm told you can even buy a suit. But in contrast to all of that, just behind this wall, through these gates, you'll find the enclosed order of Carmelite sisters. And we were here in '94 finding out something about their lifestyle. But we also discovered at that time that their convent was literally falling down. The fabric was coming apart, and they had to somehow raise the money to replace it. It was in the now misty years of emancipation, the early 1800s, that a remarkable group of women were drawn to these sequestered lands of West Waterford on the banks of the River Bride. And here they were to devote themselves to a cloistered life as brides of Christ. An inspiration but a mystery to outsiders, theirs is a life removed from the world so that they can envelop themselves in work and prayer without distraction, travelling through life largely in silent contemplation. But they have on occasion, by force of circumstances, departed from that ideal of the silent, separate life. Having come to establish themselves in Tallow in West Waterford in the early 1800s, they found that the parish priest who had invited them hadn't understood that they were an enclosed order. He had wanted teachers to give the townspeople a school. The nuns rose to the challenge and combined their life of prayer with teaching until 80 years ago. And to help the people overcome the hunger and the horror of the famine, the sisters developed the cottage-based lace-making industry, lace which graced the coronation gowns of British monarchs and which kept many families in the area fed and housed. But when they were free to, the sisters returned to a life apart. Family and friends separated by a grill, little gifts exchanged in what is called the turn, a revolving cupboard.
I hope you'll find those interesting. The grill remains as a sign of our separation. It's a reminder to us when we meet visitors that we've given ourselves totally to God, that we don't become immersed in worldly things. You know, we go to the grave to meet our relatives, to listen to people who come with their troubles. But the grill is there simply as a reminder that what we're here for, that we're here to give ourselves to God.
Seven times throughout the day, they will unhesitatingly leave aside any task to the bell's call to prayer, their prior purpose. By 5:40 each morning, they'll have gathered on their knees to begin a day which alternates work and prayer. And they say the requests from the outside for prayers brings the world, its fears and torments, inside the walls.
We're totally aware of what's going on. Actually, I often say that we're more aware possibly of the seamy side of life than people would realise, because people come to us with their troubles, family disputes, business troubles, all sorts of things like that, writing to us and coming to the grill, so that we're quite well aware of what's going on.
It's a simple life. It can be a Spartan life. Food is basic and, insofar as is possible, comes from their own garden. And like any family, one of them has to do the cooking and everyone gives a hand with the washing up. They've been cold because there was no fuel. They've been in debt.
I don't think any of us came here looking for an easy life. It has something to do with a vocation. We've been attracted to this life. I wouldn't tell anybody that it's easy. But then, as I often say, you'll find people devoting their lives to mountain climbing. They're really hooked on it. Well, same way with us. It's not an easy life, but we wouldn't live any other way. I mean, if you're going to give something to God, it has to be something worthwhile. I mean, to go the whole hog, as you might say.
While they trust in Providence, like everybody else, they've got to get on with making a living. These days, that means operating a printing works which turns out Christmas cards, mass cards and so on. They will do commercial printing, but they prefer to work on projects which promote the Christian life when that work is available.
It has two roles, really. One is to help to support ourselves. Our Holy Mother was very strong on that, because where the convent where she was, they were living, a lot of them, in poverty. But a small number, it's easier to maintain a small number. So we work to support ourselves. Also, it's a good thing. There's something in our rule which says that, it keeps the devil away.
And they happily embrace the latest technology to achieve their purpose.
I don't see why we shouldn't utilise all these things if they're going to help us in our work. Now, if you utilise some machinery that helps to do the work quicker and leaves us more time for prayer, I think that's very good.
That repeating cycle of work and prayer is relieved once each day as the sisters gather for what they may overstate to be recreation. They sit and relax, they chat, perhaps they knit, sketch or paint.
We have a radio there, and on odd time, if there were something, I'd just say something extraordinary on, some of them might listen to it. Personally, I don't. I don't have time. I mean, as for listening to programmes, it's just some might listen to the news if there was something on, and she'd tell the rest of us then. But we have a television set, and if there were a religious programme on, we would look at that. But it's mostly really for religious programmes, or at Christmas and Easter, if we had nice videos, mostly for that. But it's there, nobody has time really to look at it. No, it's not part of our life as such.
But the need to find extra income has taken on new urgency. The nuns were taken aback to be told recently that their convent is literally falling down. Cracks are appearing in the various buildings, the foundations are sinking. Expert advice is that it will be cheaper to knock the place down and rebuild, but that will still cost £400,000. More than the sisters or the local people can hope to raise themselves, so they've launched a national appeal. Putting their faith in Providence, the sisters say the money will be raised somehow. The convent and its life of prayer will continue on the banks of the River Bride. In a garden shed, a sister paints a picture which she hopes will raise money for the rebuilding appeal. And before resuming the routine of work and prayer, she and the other sisters enjoy the last few minutes of recreation, occasionally puncturing the cliched image of the joyless, relentlessly pious penitent.
People talk about what we give up, but we talk about what we've gained. I mean, when you're coming in here, you don't think of what you're giving up. You don't think of it that way. Any girl getting married doesn't think of what she's losing.
In absolute serenity, these brides of Christ walk through sacrifice almost unawares, dismissing its challenge, each making alone a personal journey to a goal. Their other Eden is a simple, unadorned place of the heart and the mind, and the little of it which is of this world, the bricks and the mortar, they now want to rebuild as part of the handing on of the rule, the life, to other generations, seeking through their other worldliness to enrich and enhance our world.
Sister Patrice, good to see you again. All of 15 years since we last met, when you were beginning your fundraising for the new building here.
Yes, it was 1994, and we were given the condition of the old monastery, and as a community we decided unanimously, once we had got several opinions, to rebuild anew. So,
And you came out, I remember at that time, you came out from behind the grill, literally, out into the big nasty world to raise the money to run your campaign.
we did, yes, we did. Yeah, we went nationwide, really. We went from County Cork, West Cork, to Dundalk. That was the extent of the fundraising.
And you went on the Late Late Show.
We did, and we didn't even know what it was prior to it.
We'd like you to welcome Sister Patrice and Sister Magdalena. Would you welcome them, please? Come in this way. Sister Magdalena, go over that way. Thank you. And Sister Patrice in there. And what have you heard about things like the Late Late Show so far down through the years?
Well, we've heard about it, that it's a very popular show.
Yes.
That, of course, Gay Byrne is the number one.
Oh, yes.
To be on,
Both very accurate so
to
far.
be on
yeah.
the Late Late would be, what we say, something.
Yes.
The challenge at the time was to raise, what, 400,000 punts, as they were at the time.
Yes, it was.
Which was a big challenge.
It was really. It was a tremendous challenge. But we had a fantastic fundraising committee. We really did. They were so committed.
And Sister Patrice, your new building, a great contrast to that sort of neo-Gothic style old monastery.
Yes, we wanted a functional building that would be, and so it was a tremendous opportunity for us to design it so that it would help us in our way of life, in our life of prayer and so on. So we went for a cloister design and built on the original site.
Of course, Sister, yours is a life of prayer here in the community, but you've got to earn your living as well, and you do that in printing.
Printing, yes, we do printing of memory cards, acknowledgement cards, wedding cards, booklets. It is really our main source of income.
So you're standing there at the printer, but you're praying.
Exactly, yeah, it's prayer. Well, we do, because so many that come, placing their orders for memory cards, it's a very sad time. It's a time too when we get, when part of our apostolate is to be there for them and to give them a listening ear. And when we're doing the memory cards, we do pray for the deceased and their loved ones that they left behind.
And to what extent does that spirit, that lifestyle, continue to attract people?
Well,
sisters?
we lost a few through death, but we've also gained 3 in the past 10 years. So we are hopeful for the future, and we are very happy. We're really blessed. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the people of the country, really, the nation, from 11-year-olds right up to 88-year-olds, for all the contributions. Every little helped, and it is a monument to the generosity of the people of Ireland, really, and also to the fundraising committee, and I'd say to the sisters too, because I never felt, even though I was superior, I never felt I was on my own. They were with me, and that made the difference.
So, Kevin, we heard there the voice of your late father, the great Waterford tenor, Frank Ryan. We're here in your home place, Curraglass, just outside.
You're very welcome.
Tallow. Your dad, of course, was compared to John McCormick. He was the next John McCormick.
That's right.
And how big a figure was he then on the international musical stage?
He got very big in the 40s. He was very, very lucky. He won the Fish Cole in Dublin in the early 30s, and that put him on the English scene, because in England that time, around the wartime, and he used to go over quite a bit because Lent was a famous thing that time. Yes. And he used to go with a group from Dublin, Jack Cruz and Kathleen Watkins, Mary O'Hara and Sean Money and these. And they do programs in London for years. But then he got his huge break. He went to America in '47 to All-Ireland, the only All-Ireland ever played outside in Ireland, in the Polo Grounds. And of course he had to sing on several occasions that the hierarchy, if you like, of the States and Ireland were there. And that launched him big into America.
So, and he would have, in Britain, have played in the Albert Hall, and in America?
Carnegie Hall.
The ultimate.
And yes.
To go back to the beginning, your dad worked in the butcher shop. He had a butcher
That's
shop
right.
here
That's
in
right.
Tallow.
That's right.
And he would sing there?
He would sing, and Saturday morning, you'd hear him singing, and you'd hear the pound of the chopper and the block and all that, and it was great. People used to even listen to him coming up the street, and he's singing.
And it was back in '86 that the late Frank Hall spoke to your brother Con, who took over the butcher shop.
That's right. I remember that well. Frank Hall came and interviewed Con. Con had to do the butchering because my father was gone so often. And he loved, and Con himself loved singing, believe it or not. But he passed away, sadly, recently, and which we all feel very sad about. But he was a great man about music too. And I'd say he was one of my father's ardent fans.
My late father was really and genuinely untrained. But the time he won the big fish in Dublin, I'm sure it was 1936 with McCushla, he was referred to that time by a leading critic, Harold White, that his voice was even better than McCormack in McCormack's young days. But what my late father had was power. No, he didn't have the finesse of McCormack, and he didn't have maybe the phrasing, but he had terrific power, and to me, he was the real, genuine operatic tenor.
Now, as we know, the man with whom he was compared, John McCormack made fortunes. Did your dad make a stack of money?
That's an awful question to ask me, but I'll answer it the best way possible. No.
And why was that?
You see, it was there were the old 78s, and there was a transfer that time with the old needle that you took out after every time you played one to the new gold needle.
So your dad just missed out on the technology and the money that went with it?
Definitely, you're right there.
And of course, Kevin, here at home, there was a great demand amongst local people for your dad to perform his operas.
Oh yeah, big time. He loved it, and he was very popular in Cork for the Opera House in Cork. As a matter of fact, he did the last Lily of Killarney was in the Opera House in Cork 3 weeks before it was burned down. And Con has a great story about the Lily of Killarney in Cove.
Another thing I like talking about is that he went to a couple of operas in Cove, and believe it or not, he took out the bicycle from here, and he and I rode a bicycle from Tallow to Cove, 28 miles, he sang the opera there, had a cup of tea and a chat, and we hit home for Tallow, did 28 miles the same night on 2 bicycles. So what tenor would do that today? Not very many. No.
And of course, you have some of his recordings.
Oh yeah, I have, and there's some beautiful recordings. The old sound again, as some would say, maybe even some of them had the frying the rasher sound coming through it. But yeah, there was we kept a lot of the old records.
And would you sit here of an evening in Carraglass and play your dad's music?
Michael, you could imagine with the lights out here at night in the winter, the fire lighting, and you're just listening to that sound. It was magic.
And that wonderful voice of the late Frank Ryan, a son of Tallow, brings to an end our trip down memory lane here in West Waterford. And we take our leave of you this evening with some charming images of the Tallow of yesteryear.
From your dream my blue and my